All right, welcome back to the Basketball Academy. Today we have an amazing guest, Susan King Borchardt. She's a former Miss Basketball from the state of Minnesota. She
Oh, you
played
went
point
way
guard,
back.
played point guard at Stanford, and currently owns her own company, Athlete Blueprint, where she works with some of the top athletes in the world. Susan, thank you so much for coming on the Basketball Academy today.
No, thank you so much for the nice introduction. I'm excited to chat with you guys today.
Yeah, same here. Well, Susan, I'll kick us off. I did a deep dive, and I just love all the things that you do, the disciplines you instill in athletes, and the joy you have for what you do. My first question, I saw a lot of the theme of resiliency, whether it's like your first year at Stanford where you had a really tough injury you had to go through mentally, or like when you and your husband moved to Spain and like he's got a great, setup where he's playing once a week, but then you find a great way to jump in and help out and, find your own niche and build from there. So my first question is, resiliency is something that stands out to me a lot. How does that discipline consistently get poured into people that you work with?
Yeah, I think I actually drawn that a lot. Someone comes to mind immediately that we're working on who has sort of had repetitive injuries in this great career that she's had so far. And it's like, okay, how do you take what you'd wish upon no one and actually turn that into something that becomes your strength? And it's like, I went through that, I can go through anything. So it's how do you sort of make that leap? And it's hard. And at first it's sort of like okay, have your second to like have your pity party. And now it's like, all right, how do we flip it and how do we use it to our advantage? And so I think that has sort of been something that I've applied in my own life a little bit, just given the circumstances that I've had. And you mentioned in Spain, sort of how I made that transition. I played that past summer in the WNBA and I loved it. It was great. But Curtis has broken his navicular bone. It's an injury that a lot of the taller guys have. It's a bone that has like the worst blood supply in the body. So for somebody that big, it's long. And so anyways, the 5 games a week NBA season just wasn't a good fit for him. And we ended up finding a place where his coach was basically like, hey, you play like that on Sunday, I don't care what you do during the week. And so it was like, oh, okay. So we could sort of design it. And so this sort of all kind of happened organically. And I was working with their men's team below Curtis's team. So almost like a collegiate team, but overseas it's pro for them. And so I was working with them and then eventually ended up working with Curtis's team and Curtis specifically, but then others as well in a performance capacity. So
Awesome.
yeah.
My second question is there's a great article on ESPN written about you where like Sue and Plum like are talking about you being the best kept secret in basketball, and we'll put that at the bottom of the interview. But the thing I love the most, they said there's so many things that you were on the forefront of that not many people in your space were doing, and the one that I love was sleep. And in our capacity, the athletes we work with, we like to say like sleep is the last performance enhancing drug. It's something that's overlooked.
I love that. I've not heard that before.
Yeah, and so if you don't mind, like what got you into that realm? How have you implemented it with your players?
That's a great question, actually. What we do is we sort of look at performance as this puzzle, right? And everyone that we're working with has a different puzzle and we're putting it together in a different way, but we sort of have these pillars that we look at, and recovery is a huge one, especially for these pro athletes when they're playing every other day and they're traveling and all this, here, there, everywhere. And so we're doing recovery in a lot of different ways, but I think what can happen is it's like, oh, do you have this fancy this? And are we doing, all these things? It's like, wait a second, all that stuff doesn't matter if we're not sleeping. That's the icing. And so we really are on that. I am big on that with my own kids. Like my kids still nap on the weekends, like forced to nap. And they're like, I don't need a nap, mom. I'm like, oh, really? Is that why you slept for 3 hours today? So it really is something that we strive to sort of get them in the habit of. And so we'll do that in multiple different ways. We'll sort of set like little alerts that get sent to them through the app we use. We try and have a really consistent bedtime when we're on planes. We'll give them meditations to do that help sort of lead to sleep when using that time efficiently. So there's a lot of different ways to do it, but I think, or a lot of different ways to emphasize sleep, but it is definitely something that we're trying to build into programs right now.
And that perfectly, this is my last question, but you said it beautifully. It's like you tailor make your regiment for the person that you work with. It isn't a one size fits all. I think your relationship with that person is so beneficial. And so I guess my last thought of it is the other things I was consuming that you've created, you do a lot on meditation or on breathing. And I think that's the love language of anyone in that high level space. Like Kobe had a famous saying of, when I breathe, it reminds myself I'm still in the driver's seat. And I think my question for you is someone who uses this beneficially, where does the use of breathing, whether it's box breathing or any other type of breathing, implement in the workouts for your players?
Yeah, so I wouldn't say we emphasize breathing within our workouts, mostly because we're trying to use that as a tool to help them be powerful. And so that's one of the first things. Like we were starting with some of the younger girls, and they're always like, "What are we? Why?" But then if you were to go into one of Kelsey's workouts, it's like it's so ingrained in her, and she uses it when she's not even thinking about it. So it's like starting that process with when they're younger. But that was a little bit of an aside. But anyways, as far as the meditation piece, that's really not in the workouts. It's more we'll use that as a relaxation tool, and so we'll use it a lot of different ways. Actually, some people will do it right before bed, depending on we kind of calibrate a little bit. We will start somewhere and kind of figure out what works for them. How'd you like that? Was that helpful to kind of figure out what works for them personally? But right before bed, we'll use it. We'll actually use it. We do a lot of cold hot contrast for people recovery wise. And so we'll implement a different kind of breath work when they're in the cold versus when they're in the hot. And really it becomes this tool where they have to relax themselves when they're in a really unrelaxing environment in the cold tub, right? And it's like to have that ability to like that actually does apply itself. So when you're at the free throw line, like you watch Kelsey, like there's a big breath that comes right before any sort of free throw. And I think that's a purposeful thing. So we'll use it that way. We'll also use it like post shoot around in the morning for players that are having kind of their shoot around on a game day. We have some people who have some anxiety. And so we found that works really well for them. On the plane, same thing. We have a couple who don't like to fly. We have a couple who love to nap, and that's sort of their segue into that. So it really is this great kind of tool in your toolbox to help you downregulate. And that's usually how we're using it.
So cool, man. Great stuff.
Good question.
Yeah.
Dustin's got a lot of questions, so you have to pause him a little bit. Susan, like I saw a quote from you that got me excited. It says, "You're not going to be outworked, or no one's going to outwork you." And I've seen it firsthand with a lot of the athletes that you train with, and they always come back even stronger or just mentally better. And where did you get that like work ethic? Like, I'm sure you had a lot of great mentors growing up. Who did you steal this from, and what stuff did you learn from them that you still use today?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I was really lucky to have some great mentors. I think my first one was probably my dad. Just in that I am one of 3 kids, and I'm the oldest, but I'm the oldest of 2 brothers. And so really quickly, I was the smallest. I'm a peanut in the basketball world in terms of size. And so I was always trying to like be one of the boys. And so in order to like be one of their gang, I could practice with them, all those things. And so I think that sort of became I'm not going to tower over anyone. I've got to work to get what I want, right? Like I've got to be the best at all these things in order to be able to play in that circle. And so I think that's kind of where that started for me a little bit. I ended up playing on varsity when I was in 7th grade. And so I think that was also like my dad basically was like, hey, you can't be equal to any of these people. Otherwise, like it goes to them, right? Like you have to be better than. And so that was always sort of the impetus to like outwork. And that was sort of my way to get there, just given my stature and sort of what I was working with. So one of my best mentors, he was essentially like my second dad. His name was Rob Babcock. He worked for, do you know who that is?
No.
Okay. A couple of his brothers are still in the NBA. His son's kind of an NBA family. But anyways, he was the director of player personnel for the Minnesota Timberwolves. And my brothers just so happened to be on an AAU team with Kevin McHale's sons, his sons. It was just this, like, they got pulled into it. My brothers are really good. One of them was a Mr. Basketball a couple of years after me. So they're on this team. And he just sort of kind of took a liking to me. And then all of a sudden it was like, oh, well, she's coming to practice too. And then, oh, she's jumping in Bobby Jackson's workouts. And oh, here, like he just sort of saw me in a way that it wasn't popular or cool yet then to like include females. And so that was really, to me, a special thing and sort of helped me see what this world was like really early on.
So cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, the fact that you got to play and train with your brothers and boys is, I mean, something that's just, I think, gets too unnoticed. A lot of athletes, I think more athletes, especially females, need to do that. So how would you encourage females to, I guess, play with their siblings or even boys to get better?
Right. Yeah. I think it's one of the most underutilized things out there, especially for females who excel, who are good, who are maybe a little bigger than like, you don't need this crazy, fantastic guy to make it a situation that's really beneficial for you, because typically they are a little more athletic, they are a little bigger, all those things, even though you might be more skilled, it just makes it, everything is more challenging. And so I think then you get used to playing in that, and then you go back to whatever your actual team might be, and it feels like things have slowed down. And that for me was a really big thing. It was like you have to be that much craftier, that much quicker, that much everything to get your shot off, to defend. And so then it's like you go back to your team, and it's really applicable in terms of being a step ahead. And so that was something that I think just sort of organically happened for me, but it's something like it's going to be happening more now, actually, because not as many people are going overseas. But it's like, how do you, after you've had your break after the season, how do you reproduce these situations for these elite females to play, right? Well, you do that with guys. And so you got to find the right group to do it with. But it's super helpful. It's the reason why in college they have, or most teams are having male practice players kind of come in, a group of 5, 6, 7 in the WNBA. Every team has that. And it really is just a way to make what you're playing against feel that much harder. So it's something that we do in our house. Flo doesn't always love it. It is hard. It's harder, right? Yeah. Like I have a daughter who's like, and I'm like, no, get out there. That it's okay if it feels like that, right? But kind of getting to feel comfortable with being uncomfortable. I think that applies in a lot of ways, and that's certainly one of those situations.
Yeah, my other question though is so like one, you just hit on it perfectly. A lot of the basketball camps that James and I do, we work with a lot of athletes who are undersized, usually point guards. And one of our mottos is, the price of admission is you have to be a better handler, shooter, and leader than everyone 7 inches taller than you.
Right. That's yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I mean, you embody that perfectly. But for me, it's a little pivot is I think for you, you're so good at what you do in your space. The price of doing business with the gods is solitude. So I bet you spend a lot of time by yourself, either learning or reading or studying. So what's something right now that's got a lot of your attention, something that you think you could implement into your style and your workouts, maybe something that's not quite hit everybody else yet?
Ooh, that's a good question. So we're always looking for, in what we do, not something that's novel just for the sake of being novel, but right. Something that I look at and I'm like, oh, wait a second, I'm going to twist that, and that would be perfect for this athlete right here. And so I think that's the way we're looking at things. And like you said, it's for us, it's not like, oh, this blanket everything. It's more like, how are we using it with people individually? But one of the things we're working with now, James, I don't know that you would have seen this yet. It's called a super band. It's something that actually we had it made. We had it made in a certain way so it would travel with people really easily. And so that's one of the things that it's like our new tool that we have 20 different ways we use it right now, and it's so effective. And it's like, I'm really excited about the next 20 that we're figuring out. And what oftentimes happens is, for example, we have someone in Turkey right now, or someone in New York who's about to play, and it's like, they don't have a weight room at the gym, like right before practice. So like, how do I give them the stimulus that they need in a day before situation to be ready and reactive without any equipment? And so that's sort of one of the puzzles, or one of the things that we're always thinking about. And this super band is one of our new kind of favorite tools that we're working with.
I said that because I was listening to you on a pod and you were talking about the use of aroma within your meditation. It was like incense oil. And I'm like, that is so brilliant. I'd never even put energy into that. And that's what made me think, man, she's consistently learning and growing and getting better.
Yeah.
And that really hyped me up,
That in general is actually really cool. It's like, the study about like you ring the bell, the dog's like, oh my God, I'm eating. It's the same idea, right? Yeah. It's like you smell the lavender, like, oh my God, I'm relaxing. This is kind of that simple, right? Yes. So I'm actually one of the college teams that I consult for. We just had like a think tank when I was there, and one of the things they're doing is they're basically taking that and we're implementing it in a really specific travelable way. And so they're getting sort of these wax sticks that we're gonna create this whole sleep hygiene routine for them and start with it. So it's exciting to kind of see their coach was into it. It's like, oh, this is cool, kind of, okay. And so how we're building that out around this sort of thought process that we know works. It's like, okay, what's the next step? How can we make this deliverable for a collegiate athlete versus a pro? It's different on every level. So
cool. And I guess my final question along those same lines is, you're working with hyper competitive people. You were one as well. How is it like, how are you able to find that balance of, okay, so so-and-so is coming off an injury and they're not gonna be able to play like they were previously, but we try to use that competitive advantage to get them to attack the next 3 workouts really well the next 3 days. Like, how are you able to manage expectations as people come through injuries or kind of stuff?
Yeah, I think it's twofold. I think it's one, it's hard when you go from competing for, a collegiate championship to now all of a sudden like, okay, I'm doing quad sets. Like that's a hard adjustment,
Yeah,
right?
totally.
Athlete I'm thinking about in particular right now that we've helped. And it's like, okay, I get there's a huge discrepancy there, but like I need you to channel what got you to that championship game to this right now. We have to win today. So that's the idea. We have to win today. So how are we doing that? Because if you can do it, or you can really, really do it, and only you really know the difference, that's the person I'm talking to. Like you got to make sure you win the day. And so then we start stacking those one days on top of each other, and then we're getting somewhere. But some of these rehabs, an ACL rehab is a long year-long process. And it's like, if you're so caught up in returning to play, it's like, there's a lot of steps in between here and there. And so kind of really getting down into the nitty-gritty of each day, that's where I think the real work and the real wins happen.
And have you found like you having to go through that yourself? Are you able to give them that lens that they may not have?
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing is, I've been through it myself, so I know what that's like. But I've also been through it now we're oftentimes pulled in these situations to kind of help with this rehab. And so now I've been through it with a lot of these elite players. And so it's like, I have those experiences for, if I'm talking to this athlete that we're rehabbing, okay, so yes, like it was the same thing for Kelsey when she was, it's like, you can pull on those people that probably went to either the same program they went to, or they're going to play against, all those things, those resonate for them. Cause these are either people that they are one of, or they're trying to be, so yeah. But then I think the other thing too, it's like, let's talk about this player we're helping right now. It's been, gosh, almost 2 years since she's played. It's been injury on top of injury on top of injury. And it's like, yes, the return to play is this like, it's this long chapter. And when you get back to playing, it's like this exciting thing. But actually the hardest part is when you are back playing, because you don't feel like yourself. That for me was the biggest struggle I had. I was tackled, had my first ACL, the graft didn't take, I rehabbed it for 9 months, didn't take, I had a second one. And then it was like, I was back playing at Stanford. And I just remember being like, my God, someone just be better than me. I don't want to be out here. I don't feel like myself. I'm playing all these minutes, but I'm like embarrassed almost because it's not me. Yeah. And it's like, there really is no way through that other than through it, right? And so you kind of got to show yourself some grace and know that that's coming. And that's oftentimes, we have someone who's going through that. And I wish I had this, honestly, I would have really benefited from it, but we try and bring someone in on the mental side early on. So not like when you're returned to play, but someone that you kind of build trust with prior to, and know that that is coming. And so when you get there, it's like you've got another person in your circle who's helped give you these tools to kind of think in and around it. And so I think that's one of the biggest things that we've sort of started doing is like, okay, like, yes, I'm going to be in Europe, but it's like, there's people who like, that's all they do. And so to bring that person in, I think is a really big piece of what we do with a lot of these people.
That's so cool, man. This is awesome.
I mean, you talk about like giving reminders and like having other people who've gone through it, but like within that, how do you like have effectively handle these challenging conversations with each client?
So yeah, I think before you're ever going to have a conversation or be allowed to have a conversation with that around something like this with someone, you have to have some level of trust. And so that's built, right? And so when we're brought in, when somebody's already injured and we're brought in and it's like, they don't really know, they might know who I am or who I've worked with, but they don't really know me yet. And I don't really know them yet. It's kind of this process of getting to know one another and then hopefully conveying that like, what we do has nothing to do with media, has nothing to do with me benefiting. Our only concern is helping them get back to where they want to be. And so I think once they can kind of understand that, because honestly, with these pro players, there's a lot of people who are, you know, in it for this Instagram or this whatever. And it's like, that's the opposite of what we are. And so we're kind of a safe space. It's like, we're not taping this and putting it out. Like, that's not what we're doing. So we really are in it just to partner with them and collaborate in that way. And so I think that's sort of how we build that trust. And then from there, you know, it's being honest. I think that's the other thing, is they hear a lot of times like how great they are, how, you know, how this, how that, how everything. And so sometimes that conversation is, hey, that actually wasn't good enough. Like, I know you have more. And that might not be an easy thing to hear, but I think they actually appreciate it because they appreciate the honesty, right? And so there's like a standard that we're trying to help hold them to help get them back to, or to help get them where they want to go.
Nice.
It's great. And Susan, one of the first times we ever had a conversation, like, you told me like, oh, I love challenging my clients. Like, I love pushing them to a whole new level. And I know maybe some of them might not like that in the moment. I call it like, hate me now, thank me later. Like, how do you get them to get to that next level? Like, what are some of your secrets?
I think it's a little bit different depending on their age and depending on who they are. Some people can just kind of automatically get themselves to that level. There's other people who it feels dangerous to them. And so it's like they want to find a way out before they get there. And so those are the ones who I think it's really challenging to kind of get, or it's like, well, this is the way I've always done it. I'm like, yeah, there's a lot of ways to do it. That's not our way. And so kind of getting them to try something new. We're now kind of in this point at the pro level where it's like they've kind of seen other people around, they know, or they played against them, like, what are they doing that's a little different? And so there's some buy-in in that, just knowing that like, okay, this is I haven't done this before, but like, I know what it looks like for the people who have. And so let me give that a try. We just started with someone new, actually, she's a pro. And she's like, oh my God, like, I don't know what just happened right there, but that was not okay. You know, but I'm like, but it was, because that was sort of the entry level version of where you're actually going to be. Like, imagine stacking that on top of each other 12 times, and then we'll progress. Right. And so I think that's been helpful now that we have enough people that are playing and people are like, okay, I want to feel, or I want to move like that, to kind of help people try and buy into what we're doing if we do end up starting with them on a like kind of all-in capacity.
Nice. Yeah, I guess my last question is about let's break down Northwest Select a little bit. I'm just kidding. So I'm talking about minutes. But my last question was this. So there's a guy named Adam Grant who I really like, a really good author, and he talks about the difference between like the imposter syndrome and the growth mindset. And bear with me, it's a little bit of a long question, but he says the imposter syndrome is, I don't know what I'm doing. It's only a matter of time till everybody else figures me out. Where the growth mindset is, I don't know what I'm doing. It's only a matter of time till I figure it out. Yep. And I think with you do this. So it seems like you do this so well with yourself and with your clients, but how do you keep them on that path of like, man, I've had a couple of bad days in a row. I'm not feeling like me because my identity is enthralled in what I do. How do you keep the mindset on like, we're on the journey together, we'll get there? Yeah,
that's a great question, actually. I think it's different with each one. But in terms of myself personally, and like, there are things that have popped up for us. Like, we're always learning, just because we're always encountering something new. Or like, oh, hold on, do that again. Let me watch. Okay, why is that happening? What's going on? I don't know the answer yet, but I'm going to find out. And I have really smart people who are going to help me learn what I need. And then I'm going to take that, and then I'm going to develop something to kind of help get us out of this position. So I think probably the best thing is knowing that, gosh, I do not know. There are so many things I don't know, but I have really smart resources around me. And so I'm not afraid to say, like, I'm not sure. Like, let me find out and figure out kind of the best way to attack this. And so I think by being honest like that and not pretending like, oh, I know, like, I have had a lot of experiences, but I'm lucky to be kind of surrounded by a lot of people who are far smarter than I am, and kind of use them as resources to pull in and help the people that I'm working with. But in terms of how I get an athlete sort of out of a funk, or out of a, like, oh my God, I just haven't felt like this yet. I think, again, it's kind of comes down to like, okay, show yourself a little grace. Okay, you haven't been, all right, how are we going to win today? Like, let's get back on track. How are we going to win today? Same thing with our kids. We have 4 little kids, and they all kind of do multiple things, and it can end up being a lot. And so we try to not have it get to that space, but sometimes I'll be like, I do not feel like going. I'm like, yeah, I get that. It has been a lot, but like, let's just think for a moment, all the kids who would love to be in your shoes,
Right.
to be on this team, to have their parents drive them here. And like, just like, let's step back and appreciate this opportunity and don't waste it, you know? So I think that's kind of the talk we have with our kids along those lines.
That's so good because like my mentor, we do like skill development together. We work for an MBA organization, and his thing that he's so good at is, one, he's an expert in his field, but when he doesn't know, he has the self-awareness and the confidence to say, I don't know, but someone better than me
Yeah.
does. That's a
Yep.
skill that not many
Exactly.
people possess.
Oh,
And then the second part of that is the awareness. What you do with your kids is awesome. Instead of like, we're doing this because I said so. Hey,
right.
let's do a perspective shift. Awesome.
Yeah, I think too, like when you own it, like,
Yeah.
well, let's talk about Flo, because you know Flo. Flo does, she's a competitive dancer and she does basketball, two things that don't necessarily really go together, but she loves them both so much. And so she does both of them, and it can be like, this is a lot. She's going straight from dancing straight to basketball. And it's like easier for her once I remind her, like, okay, like this is you decided this is what you wanted to do. When you own that decision, it's like, okay, yeah, this is what I said I wanted. So now I got to go and do it, as opposed to it being like, mom's making me, like that doesn't work. I don't think once you get past a certain age. It's like once you own something, it's like, oh yeah, right. This is what comes with that. And so we try to frame it for them in that way also.
Also, how great of a name is Flo? What a perfect name. Like,
I
Flo
know,
State.
right?
Awesome.
Yeah, I mean, flow is just world class, and you work with a lot of world class people, and you're world class yourself. So, how do you define success for yourself and your clients?
That's a good question. So for me, I think success is going to bed at the end of the day and feeling like I made an impact in helping them get to where they want to go. And that like sort of happen. It is like a win the day thing for me too, right? Like we have all these people in all these different scenarios. Like some are playing in the finals, some have been in their off-season program for what feels like almost 2 months already. Some are already starting their overseas. It's like everyone's in these different locations, and it's like, how have I done my job for them personally to help them win today, and then how are we stacking for tomorrow? And so that for me, I think is a big piece of it. And then also just feeling like I really enjoy sort of being a small part of their journey, and sort of really, you end up sort of being like family with these people. And so feeling like you've done right by them and like given it your best, and not taken the easy way to get to it, but like done really what they needed. That for me feels like a success. So
I guess I've said my last question 3 times, but this is my last question. But I think it's a perfect one for you because you're an expert in this field. But for you, where does confidence come from?
I think as an athlete, if I refer to like that phase, for me, confidence came through reps. And I know it's not the same for everyone. We have people on our team who like, or people that we work with who wasn't about that, but for me, that's what it was. It was like, okay, I put in the work, I saw it go through, I know I did my job in terms of like preparing myself. So tomorrow I'm going to go out there and I'm going to trust and rely on that work, and I'm going to be free. Like I'm not going to think, I just gotta play. And so for me, that was really important. I think that applies for me professionally also. It's like if I have done the prep work and I go out there really prepared, that's helpful to me. Now, a lot of times, it's almost like being prepared for not knowing any situation that you're walking into. Like this happens all the time with the national team. It's like we go in and I have no idea what I'm going to be doing. I don't know who the players are in this camp until the day of. And it's like, okay, what are people going to need? Let me see how I can set it up. And I've got to have confidence kind of in myself and like my opinion as to what's best. And so that's being prepared for the kind of unpreparable, is sort of, you do that in a different way. And it's like, okay, like I know I have no idea what equipment's going to be, but like these are the things I know for sure that I'm going to do. And then you have to kind of walk in and sort of own it a little bit. And so I think that's that comes through experience also. I've been lucky to be with the national team through the whole last rotation, and it was a long one because of COVID. And so I got a lot of experience with it. But I think I think for me, preparation is kind of where that confidence comes from.
If you were given a limited amount of money and resources, how would you make the game better?
You said unlimited or limited?
Unlimited.
Unlimited?
It's your world. You're the commissioner. You
It's
do whatever
my-
you want.
Yeah. So this is actually a great question. I have a good answer, I think. So as much as we work with these pro athletes in a really like individualized, tailored manner, like everything's specified to them, I think there's a flip side to that for the youth. And I think there's this standard that every youth athlete should be able to do X, Y, and Z, right? It's like you shouldn't be allowed to play 90 games a year, but you can't stand on one leg, and you can't, like, you have no kind of internal stability, you have no infrastructure to do that. And I think that's one of the reasons why we're seeing all of these injuries. It's like that 7th, 8th, 9th, all of a sudden you can be really powerful, like you can create force, all of these things, and do that 90 times a year without infrastructure to support that. That's a problem. And so I think, to me, starting at a really young age, that's why I'm actually really excited about kind of Flo and her age group, sort of getting them started. And it's not Olympic lifting, anything like that. It's getting them to be able to control their own body and kind of own that space in a lot of different ways. And so I would invest in that side, whether it's like teams being able to pay for an extra 15-20 minutes of gym time so that they can actually do the warm-up that they should be doing. Like, it should feel like strength work for these guys when they first start. We get that all the time with our pros, even though, like, that was the warm-up, you know, but yes, it was like, that should be ingrained in our youth system. And I don't think it is currently in the right way. So
that was, yeah, you hit that so perfectly. There's a book called Range by David Epstein. It's one of my favorites. And in that, there's a chapter on Cirque du Soleil athletes where they make them do different. So if I'm a lion tamer, now I'm going to do some tightrope things. And by doing different disciplines, they found that not only do they understand other people's roles better, but injury rate went down significantly because you put your body in different kinesthetic positions. And there's a guy named Julius Randle, who's really famous basketball player, who broke his leg on a regular non-contested layup because, like you're saying, he had done so much. He didn't have the infrastructure in place and had played so many games at a young age that his body, like, there's a little bit of like internal movement of the knee, and then the leg kind of just broke. And that started this whole conversation, like you're saying, of like, man, did he have the infrastructure in place, or did he just do the same movement and pattern years and years and years and years until it?
No, I think that's one of the rules at our house for our kids is you can't just play one sport. You got to play. You have to play two, because I don't want your body doing the same that you have. Like, if you think of a tread on a tire, right? Like, you don't need that wear and tear. I don't think they need to play 900 games every year. I don't think they do. And so ours don't. Like, we do skill work. We sort of choose what we have them doing, and we do make them do two things. And luckily, like, they're all excited to do two. It's not like forceful or anything like that. But I would rather have them be maybe a couple steps behind skill wise, but really because that we can always get, you know, like, and they're going to work towards that, especially as they get older. But it's like knowing how to move in your own body, I think, is so huge. And when I was at Stanford, as a performance coach, we would get, you know, these freshmen who are, you know, like new, they had injuries as though they've been playing for 30 years because they had, you know, it's like they have all of these wear and tear issues that you shouldn't have coming into college. Like, it's different. A senior is very different than a freshman, but like, not really based on what they're doing together. And so I do think that that's a really big piece. Not, I know, like, intervention, yes, that, but actually the best are valid movement and strength program. So it's like those two are really one and the same, you know. And it's not just I don't want to do the prehab stuff. I've never been. No, that's actually helping you move better, which is going to help make you a better athlete, which is a better basketball player, you know. 100%. So that's kind of our perspective.
That's so great, man. Thank you so much for the time, Susan. I took a lot of notes, so thank you.
Absolutely, it was really nice to talk to you guys.
You did Dawg Class with Kelsey. Can you expand on that? Like, what that was about? Again, that's so like, not enough people know about it. And I thought it was one of the most coolest things, especially for female athletes, to just be a part of, and just to grow from not only a basketball standpoint, but the mental side and physical point.
Yeah, it was actually amazing. I loved it. I loved being a part of it. I love Kelsey, and so it just sort of embodied her, and so to be a part of that was really special. Basically, what she would say is, when we first started, or before we started working out, she was playing with Sue, and Sue is like, you know, I don't know how much older, but like 14 years, something like that, older than her. And she's like, all of a sudden I get to the gym and I'm like, what is she doing that I am not doing? Because like, I want to look like that. I want to move like that. She kicked my ass. That did not feel good. Like, things need to change. And so her first couple years in the league, she would say that she sort of floundered a little bit and it was a hard transition for her. Her first couple years weren't great, kind of in terms of playing time and her feeling like Kelsey, I think is maybe a good way to put it. And so this camp was sort of her idea of like, okay, I didn't know any of the stuff that I'm doing now. I had no idea. I wasn't prepared to make that transition. And so I want to be someone who's giving back and like sharing what I now know with some of these kids that are going to go through this themselves coming up here. It's like there is no WNBA rookie transition program like there is in the NBA, right? Like they have that whole program built out for them. My husband went through it. Like it's all there. There's nothing like that on the WNBA side. And so her idea was like, okay, I want to bring them into my training camp. That was actually her camp for her to get ready for her season. And so she was number 10. Then her number is number 10, but she was player 10. She brought the top 9 underneath her and basically took them through what she does on a daily basis, something scaled and, fit to people who've never done something like that before, but basically shared with them sort of all the things she's doing or all the things pros are doing to prep themselves to play at that level. And then hopefully they can take some of those skills back and start implementing it now. And so we brought the Pilates instructor that I work with and she works with. Her mental coach, who's amazing, came. Her on-court guy, Noah, who's also amazing, was there. I was there and ran the performance side. And so it really was sort of this all-encompassing day because as a pro, like your body is your job, right? And so sort of seeing all the pieces that go into taking care of it in and around just the time on court and all the things she's doing to sort of be at her best and really sort of seeking out that 1% to 2% edge that really does end up making the difference. So it was awesome. Under Armour did a fabulous job of putting it on. It was at IMG Academy. I'd never been there before. The bubble was there. I wasn't in the bubble, but like had programmed for all of these people in the bubble. And so seeing it was actually really cool. And I was just a really neat atmosphere to be a part of. And the women who came, the 9 that she invited, were also fantastic. And so it was just fun to kind of get to know some of the next people coming up a little bit and be around them, but then also see Kelsey and see like, whoa, that difference is there. And these are some of the things that she's doing to sort of be at that level. So it was really cool.
Yeah, that's really cool. Noah LaRoche, he does great stuff with cognition. He's been that stuff for the players. Yeah.
He's awesome. He works with another one of the athletes that we work with. And so it's cool. You can like see it in them, in the way that they move. And what's kind of cool is the stuff that we're doing. A lot of it is like single leg fast decel based and it like so organically pairs really nicely with one another. And so he's fabulous.
He is. He's great at what he does.
Yeah.
Man, that's so cool. This hypes me up, Susan. It's always good to see people, one, who are great at what they do. They work tirelessly, but then like grow the game. So we really appreciate your time, obviously.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you guys for having me. This was fun.
Yeah, for sure. Anything else, James, you need?
No, we're good. Thank you so much, Susan. It's great to see you and great to just hear more about your life. And really just grateful that a lot of the athletes I work with are with you and for their long careers. So thank you so much.